Long ago, in a quiet village surrounded by tall iroko trees and sweet orange farms, there lived a young girl named Luma. She was the only daughter of Mama Rena and Papa Rena, two hard-working farmers who lived a simple but peaceful life. Their small house stood beside a narrow river where children played every evening. Luma was known across the whole village for one thing: her beauty. Welcome to the sweetest African folktale stories, where we bring to you the sweetest folktales to nourish your mind and soul. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell so we can grow together, sweet folks. People often stopped to stare whenever she walked by. One afternoon, two women at the stream whispered to each other. "Have you seen that girl before?" one asked. "You mean Luma?" the other replied. "Yes, that one. Her skin shines like fresh palm oil." The second woman nodded slowly. Beauty like that can either bless a person or destroy them. Luma's beauty was truly rare. Her skin was smooth and golden. Her eyes were bright like stars in a dark sky. Her hair was thick and long, falling down her back like a black river. When she smiled, her teeth shone like white shells. Some people even said the spirits of the forest must have shaped her with special care. But there was one problem. Luma loved her beauty too much. Every morning before the sun rose, Mama Rena would already be outside pounding yam. "Luma," she would call from the yard. "Yes, Mama," Luma would answer lazily from inside the hut. "Come and help me prepare the food before your father returns from the farm." But inside the room, Luma would be sitting in front of a small mirror. She would tilt her head, turn left, turn right, smile slowly. Then she would whisper to herself, "Luma, you are the most beautiful girl in this village." And she would giggle softly. The mirror Luma used was small and old. Papa Rema had bought it from a traveling trader many years ago. But to Luma, it was the most important object in her life. She spent hours looking at herself. Sometimes she would laugh. Sometimes she would pose like a queen. "Ah," she would say proudly, "who can compete with my beauty?" One afternoon, her younger cousin Tenny came to visit. Tenny stood at the door watching her. "Luma, what are you doing?" Luma did not even turn around. "I am admiring something beautiful," she replied. "What is it?" Tenny asked curiously. Luma smiled at the mirror. "Me?" Tenny blinked in surprise. "Just you?" "Yes," Luma said proudly, "because no girl in this village is as beautiful as I am." Tenny scratched her head. "But beauty is not everything." Luma turned quickly and frowned. "What do you mean?" "My mother says kindness is more important." Luma laughed loudly. "Kindness will not marry a king?" "A king?" Tenny asked. "Yes," Luma replied confidently. "One day, a rich and powerful king will come and marry me." Tenny shook her head slowly. "You are dreaming too much." But Luma waved her hand dismissively. "Dreams are for ordinary girls," she said proudly. "My future is already shining." Outside the house, Mama Rena heard everything. She sighed deeply. "This girl," she murmured softly. "Pride is growing inside her like a dangerous weed." Life in the village was busy and full of work. Every morning, the women went to the stream to fetch water. The men went to farms and forests. Children helped sweep compounds and feed goats. But Luma did almost nothing. One day, Mama Rena entered the room carrying a basket of yams. "Luma," she said gently, "please help me peel these yams." Luma looked at the basket like it was something dirty. "Peel yam," she repeated. "Yes," Mama Rena replied. "We must cook before your father returns." Luma lifted her hands and stared at her fingers. "My fingers are too fine for that kind of work." Mama Rena shocked in shock. "What do you mean?" Luma shook her head slowly. These hands are soft. They are meant to wear gold rings, not peel yam. Mama Rena nodded. Gold rings? Yes, Luma said proudly. When I marry a king, I will wear many gold rings. Mama Rena dropped the basket with a soft thud. Listen carefully, my daughter, she said firmly. A proud heart always leads a person into trouble. But Luma simply laughed. Mama, you worry too much. She stood up and walked toward the mirror again. Just wait, she said proudly. One day this village will see how great my life will become. Mama Rena left the room quietly. As she stepped outside, she whispered sadly, May the spirits teach this child humility before it is too late. Days turned into weeks, and Luma's pride only grew stronger. Every day when the village girls gathered to fetch water, they would call her, Luma, come with us to the river. But Luma would reply from inside her house, You go ahead, the sun is too hot for my skin. One afternoon, 3 of her friends, Zari, Mela, and Kito, visited her. They sat on wooden stools under the mango tree. Luma, Zari said happily, I have good news. What news? Luma asked. I am getting married next moon. Oh? Yes, Zari said shyly. His name is Pato. He is a farmer. Luma laughed loudly. A farmer? Zari looked confused. Yes, what is wrong? Luma shook her head slowly. Zari, you could not find a richer man? Mela frowned. Love is more important than money. But Luma laughed again. Mela, please, do not speak like a poor person. The girls exchanged uncomfortable glances. Kito finally spoke softly. Luma, you should be happy for your friend. But Luma waved her hand dismissively. Why should I celebrate small dreams? Zari stood up slowly. Small dreams? Asked quietly. Yes, Luma said proudly. My husband will not be a farmer, or a hunter, or a fisherman. She raised her chin. My husband will be a king. The girls left without another word, and for the first time, Luma noticed something strange. Her friends were slowly disappearing from her life. One bright market day, the whole village was alive with noise and excitement. Women arranged baskets of tomatoes, peppers, and okra on wooden tables. Children ran around laughing. Drummers sat under a mango tree beating soft rhythms. Luma prepared herself carefully that morning. She wore her finest wrapper. She tied a bright cloth around her hair. Then she rubbed palm oil on her skin until it shone beautifully. When she stepped into the market, people immediately noticed her. A young boy whispered, Look, Luma has come. An old man shook his head slowly. Yes, she is beautiful. Then he added quietly, but beauty without humility is dangerous. Lumas proudly walked between the market stalls. Her waist moved gracefully. Her chin stayed high. Suddenly, boomp, she collided with someone. Her basket fell to the ground. Tomatoes rolled everywhere. Firewood scattered across the dust. The person she bumped into fell heavily to her knees. The crowd gasped loudly. Ah! Someone whispered nervously. That is Mama Sora, the oldest woman in the village. Mama Sora slowly lifted her tired eyes and looked at Luma. My child, she said softly, forgive me, my eyes are no longer strong. But instead of helping her, Luma frowned in anger. Why were you standing in my way like a stubborn goat? The market became completely silent. No one expected what would happen next. The market fell so quiet that even the goats stopped bleating. Everyone stared at Luma in disbelief. Mama Sura struggled to gather the scattered firewood. Her hands trembled. Her knees shook. Yet Luma stood there with her arms folded. Are you just going to sit there? Luma snapped impatiently. You pushed me and ruined my tomatoes. A young woman quickly whispered, Luma, please help her. She is an elder. But Luma hissed. I did not push her. She was blocking the road like an old log. The villagers began to murmur. Ah, this girl has no respect. Mama Sura finally stood up slowly with the help of her stick. My child, she said calmly, age comes to everyone. But Luma rolled her eyes. Then age should stay at home. The words pierced the air like a knife.
Mama Sura stared at her quietly. For a moment, the wind seemed to pause. Then Mama Sura lifted her head toward the sky and spoke in a deep voice that made people shiver. "Luma," she said slowly, "you worship your beauty like a goddess." The villagers looked at each other nervously. Mama Sura continued, "The mirror you love so much will soon turn against you." Luma laughed loudly. "What nonsense are you talking about?" But the old woman's eyes grew sharp. "Your beauty will melt like candle wax under the sun." The crowd gasped. "And until your proud heart learns humility, your reflection will show you nothing but sorrow." The air in the market felt heavy. Some women covered their mouths in fear. One man whispered nervously, "Mama Sura has spoken. This is not good." But Luma laughed again.
You old people love frightening stories. Mama Sora raised her walking stick slightly. You will not understand until the day your heart becomes humble. Then she turned and slowly walked away. People quickly moved aside to let her pass. No one dared speak. Luma bent down and picked up her tomatoes angrily. "These people are all dramatic," she muttered. A nearby trader shook her head. "Luma, you should apologize." "For what?" Luma replied. "You insulted an elder." Luma lifted her basket. "I did nothing wrong." Another man warned her gently. "Young girl, words spoken by elders carry power." But Luma waved her away. "I am not afraid of empty threats." She lifted her chin proudly and walked home. Behind her, the villagers continued whispering, "That girl's pride will bring trouble." "Did you see Mama Sora's eyes?" "Yes, something serious has begun." But Luma ignored them all. As she walked home, she hummed happily. "People just love to exaggerate," she said to herself. When she reached her house, she ran straight into her room and grabbed her mirror. "Let me see the most beautiful girl in the village again." She smiled widely at her reflection. But for a brief moment, the mirror flickered, just slightly. Luma blinked. "Huh?" Then everything looked normal again. She shrugged. "Maybe my eyes are tired." But something strange had already started. That night, Luma could not sleep peacefully. A strange heat crawled across her skin. She kept turning on her mat. "Why is my body feeling like this?" she whispered. Outside, crickets sang in the darkness. Mama Rina knocked softly on the door. "Luma, are you awake?" "Yes, Mama." "What is wrong?" "My skin feels hot." Mama Rina touched her forehead. "You are not sick?" She looked worried. "Did something happen in the market today?" Luma hesitated. "Nothing important." Mama Rina stared at her carefully. "Tell me the truth." Luma sighed. "I only bumped into Mama Sora." Mama Rina's eyes widened. "And what happened?" "Nothing," Luma said casually. Mama Rina crossed her arms. "Luma?" The girl finally admitted. "She said something about my beauty disappearing." Mama Rina's face turned pale. "You insulted her, didn't you?" Luma remained silent. Mama Rina shook her head sadly. "Oh, my daughter. Why?" "She was blocking my way." "Luma," Mama Rina said softly, "an elder's curse is not something to laugh at." But Luma rolled her eyes again. "Mama, you believe too many old stories." Mama Rina sighed deeply. "Sometimes old stories are warnings." She left the room quietly. Luma looked at her mirror again. "Nothing will happen," she said confidently. But when she touched her cheek, it felt rough, like dry sand. Her smile slowly faded. The next morning, the entire village awoke to a terrifying scream. "Ah!" Birds flew out of trees. Dogs began barking. Mama Rina rushed into Luma's room. "What happened?" Luma was staring at the mirror in horror. "Mama, look!" Mama Rina gasped. Luma's once smooth skin had turned rough and uneven. Her bright eyes looked dull. Small patches of her beautiful hair had fallen out. "This cannot be real," Luma cried. She touched her face again and again. "My beauty, my beauty." Tears rolled down her cheeks. Mama Rina covered her mouth. "Oh, my child." Luma ran outside screaming. Villagers gathered quickly. Some stared in shock. Others whispered quietly, "Is that really Luma? What happened to her face? She looks completely different." Children hid behind their mothers. One little boy whispered, "Is she sick?" Luma fell to her knees crying, "Mama Sora has cast me." Mama Rina helped her stand. "Let us go find her." But when they reached Mama Sora's hut, it was empty. The old woman was gone. No one had seen where she went. And so the whispers began again. "Luma's pride has destroyed her beauty. Such a sad fate." Luma covered her face with her hands. For the first time in her life, she wished no one would look at her. Days passed slowly. Luma stopped leaving the house. Her mirror was covered with cloth. She no longer wanted to see her reflection. One afternoon, she sat quietly beside the window. "I hate this," she whispered. Mama Rina sat beside her. "My daughter, this is a lesson." "A cruel lesson," Luma replied bitterly. "Sometimes the strongest medicine tastes bitter." Luma wiped her tears. "I will apologize to Mama Sora." "Yes," Mama Rina said. "That is the right thing." But the problem remained. Mama Sora had vanished. Some villagers said she had traveled to another village. Others believed she had returned to the forest spirits. No one knew the truth. Weeks passed. Luma grew quieter and more humble. She began helping her mother with small tasks. One morning, she peeled yams silently. Mama Rina watched her carefully. "You are changing." Luma sighed. "I wish I had listened earlier." Just then, knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the door. Paparina opened it slowly. "Yes, what do you want?" The stranger vendor spoke slowly. "I bring a message." Paparina frowned. "A message for who?" "For the girl named Luma." Luma stepped forward nervously. "Yes, that is me." The stranger lifted his head slightly. "Your curse can only be broken in one way." The room became silent. "What way?" Luma asked carefully. The stranger spoke carefully. "You must marry the ugliest man alive." Luma's heart nearly stopped. And that was only the beginning of her true test. The room became so quiet that even the wind outside could be heard brushing against the palm leaves. Luma stared at the stranger in disbelief. "Marry the ugliest man alive?" she repeated slowly. "Yes," the stranger answered calmly. Mama Rina quickly stepped forward. "There must be another way," she pleaded. "My daughter has already suffered enough." But the stranger shook his head. "The curse was not placed lightly," he said. "Pride must be healed with humility." Paparina folded his arms. "And who is this man you speak of?" The stranger replied, "His name will reveal itself when the time comes." Luma felt tears gathering in her eyes. "How can I marry someone I have never seen?" The stranger looked directly at her. "You once judged people by their appearance. Now life asks you to look deeper." Luma lowered her head. Her voice trembled. "And if I refuse? Then the curse will remain forever." The stranger turned towards the door. "But remember this," he added. "You must marry him not only with your body, but with your heart." Then he walked away slowly, disappearing into the dusty road. Mama Rina rushed outside. "Wait! Tell us more!" But the stranger was already gone. Luma sank on a wooden stool. "How did my life become like this?" Paparina sighed deeply. "My daughter, sometimes a storm must pass before the sky becomes clear." But Luma's mind was full of fear. Marry the ugliest man alive? She could not imagine such a life. For many days, Luma could not stop thinking about the stranger's words. Every morning she awoke with the same question in her mind. What kind of man could be uglier than my curse? She no longer cared about beauty. Now she only cared about freedom. One afternoon, she sat outside the house watching children play. A little girl tripped and fell near the path. Without thinking, Luma rushed over. "Are you hurt?" she asked gently. The girl sniffed and nodded. "My knee hurts." Luma cleaned the dirt from the wound and tore a small piece of cloth to wrap it. "Better?" she asked. The girl smiled. "Yes, thank you." An old woman watching nearby whispered to another villager, "Look at Luma now." "Yes," the other replied. "She is different." Luma heard them but said nothing. Inside her heart, she knew the truth. I deserve this suffering, she thought. Later that evening, she spoke quietly to her mother. Mama, yes, my daughter. If the ugly man comes, I will marry him. Mama Rina shocked. Are you sure? Luma nodded slowly. I cannot live with this curse forever. Papa Rina overheard the conversation. He walked in and placed a hand on her shoulder. You are showing courage now. But Luma sighed deeply. It is not courage, Papa. It is acceptance. She looked up at the sky. I only hope the man is not worse than the curse. The night grew quiet, but somewhere far away, someone was already walking towards the village. 3 days later, the village awoke to a strange sight. A short, bent man was slowly walking along the dusty road towards the village square. He leaned heavily on a crooked walking stick. Thump, thump, thump. Children stopped playing and stared at it. One boy whispered, "Who is that?" Another boy covered his nose. "He smells strange." The man's clothes were torn and mismatched. His beard was long and tangled. And when he smiled, only 3 brown teeth remained in his mouth. Women standing by the well gasped quietly. Ah, who brought this man here? He looks like he has not bathed in years. The stranger finally stopped in front of Paparina's house. Thump, thump, thump. He knocked loudly. Paparina opened the door slowly. Yes, what do you want? The man grinned widely. I heard a girl named Luma is searching for a husband. Paparina's face froze. And who are you? The man straightened proudly. My name is Bako. Just then, Luma stepped forward. The moment she saw him, her heart dropped. This must be the man, she whispered inside her mind. Bako scratched his beard and smiled. So, he said cheerfully, are you the girl who wants to marry me? The villagers had already gathered around the house. Whispers filled the air. This cannot be real. Luma marrying that man? But Luma remembered the traveler's warning. She took a deep breath and slowly nodded. Yes. The villagers exploded with shocked voices. Did she say yes? Luma is really marrying him? One woman covered her mouth. Wonders will never end. Bako laughed loudly. Good. I like a woman who makes quick decisions. He stepped closer. His breath smelled terrible. Luma struggled not to step backward. Papa Rena cleared his throat. Marriage is a serious matter. Yes, Bako agreed. So when is the wedding? Mama Rena whispered urgently to her daughter. Are you absolutely sure about this? Luma swallowed hard. This is the only way to break the curse. Bako clapped his hands happily. Wonderful. I was getting tired of traveling alone. One villager muttered under his breath. This is the strangest wedding we have ever seen. Within 2 days, preparations were made. But the wedding was nothing like the joyful ceremonies the village usually celebrated. There were no drums, no dancing, no singing, just quiet whispers. Luma wore a simple faded dress. Bako wore an old red wrapper tied around his waist. When the elder asked the question, do you accept this man as your husband? Luma closed her eyes briefly. Then she answered, yes. The elder turned to Bako. And do you accept Luma as your wife? Bako grinned. Of course. And just like that, the proud girl who once dreamed of marrying a king became the wife of the ugliest man in the land. That night, Luma entered the small hut of Bako. The smell inside nearly made her dizzy. Old clothes were scattered everywhere. Dirty plates covered the floor. Bako jumped onto the wooden bed happily. Ah, finally, I have a wife. He stretched loudly. Then he lay down. Within minutes, grrr, his snoring filled the room like thunder. The bed shook slightly with every breath. Luma sat by the window, staring at the moon. What kind of life is this? She whispered to herself. Suddenly, prrr, Bako turned to sleep. Luma covered her nose quickly. Oh no. She tried not to laugh or cry. This is worse than I imagined. She stood quietly and opened the window wider. The cool night breeze entered the room. Luma looked up at the sky. "I will endure this," she whispered. "I must become better." Behind her, Bako snored even louder. Grrr. Luma sighed softly. Her journey of humility had truly begun, and the hardest lessons were still waiting for her. The first morning after the wedding came quickly. Before the sun had fully arisen, Luma was already awake. She sat quietly on the edge of the wooden bed, listening to Bako's loud snoring. Grrr, grrr. She sighed and rubbed her tired eyes. "This is my life now," she whispered. Suddenly, Bako woke up with a loud yawn. "Ah, wife." He stretched his arms and scratched his belly. "Where is my breakfast?" Luma blinked. "Breakfast?" "Yes," Bako said impatiently. "A husband must eat early." "But there is no food prepared yet," she replied softly. Bako frowned immediately. "What kind of wife are you?" Luma quickly stood up. "I will cook now." She rushed outside to fetch water and firewood. Soon smoke began to rise from the small kitchen hut. She cooked yam porridge and brought it to Bako. He tasted it and made a face. "This soup tastes like stones." Luma lowered her head. "I will do better tomorrow." Later that afternoon, he shouted again. "Luma." "Yes?" "My back is itching. Scratch it." She hesitated for a moment, but then obeyed. Days turned to weeks, and Bako kept giving orders. "Wash my clothes. Clean the hut. Fetch water. Cook faster." But Luma never argued. Inside her heart, she kept repeating one promise. "I will never be proud again." The villagers began to notice something surprising. The same girl who once mocked others was now the most humble person in the village. One hot afternoon at the village stream, women gathered to fetch water. Luma arrived carrying 2 empty clay pots. The women stared in shock. "Is that really Luma?" "Yes, it is." Before anyone could say more, Luma smiled gently. "Good afternoon." The women slowly replied, "Good afternoon." Then something even more surprising happened. An elderly woman struggled to lift a heavy basket of firewood. Before anyone could help, Luma rushed forward. "Let me carry that for you." The old woman blinked in surprise. "Will you help me?" "Yes," Luma said kindly. She lifted the basket and carried it all the way to her hut. Along the road, children ran beside her laughing. "Look, Luma is carrying firewood." But Luma did not mind. Later that afternoon at the market, a small boy tripped and fell beside a stall. "Ow!" he cried. Luma quickly knelt beside him. "Are you hurt?" She cleaned his wound and gave him a small piece of bread. The villagers watched quietly. One woman whispered, "She has truly changed." Another nodded. "Pain has taught her what pride never could." From a distance, under the shade of a mango tree, an old woman sat quietly watching everything. Her eyes sparkled with quiet satisfaction. It was Mama Sora. That night, the moon shone brightly over the village. Luma sat beside the window while Bako snored loudly. Grrr, grrr. She looked up at the moon and spoke softly. "I don't know if anyone is listening." Her voice trembled slightly. "But if my beauty ever returns," she paused, "I promise I will never laugh at anyone again." A gentle breeze moved through the trees. Luma closed her eyes. "I now understand what it feels like to be judged." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I only want to be a good person." Slowly, she lay down and fell asleep. During the night, something magical happened. The room is filled with a soft silver light. Mama Sora appeared in her dream, glowing like moonlight. Mama Sora smiled gently. "My daughter," she said softly. Luma bowed her head in the dream. "Forgive me for the pain I caused." Mama Sora nodded. "You have already asked forgiveness with your actions." Luma looked up hopefully. "Have I learned my lesson?" "Yes," the old woman replied. "You have discovered the true meaning of beauty." Then she touched Luma's forehead lightly. "When you wake up, you will see." The dream slowly faded into darkness. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the hut. Luma stretched her arms and walked towards the clay water pot outside. As usual, she avoided looking at her reflection. But something felt different. Her skin no longer felt rough. Her hair no longer itched. Slowly, she leant over the water. Then she gasped loudly. "My face!" Her reflection stared back at her. Her smooth golden skin had returned. Her eyes sparkled again. Her hair flowed thick and long down her shoulders. Luma screamed, but this time with joy. "Mama! Papa! Come quickly!" Mama Rena rushed outside. "What is it?" When she saw Luma's face, she covered her mouth. "My daughter, your beauty!" Papa Rena lifted hands to the sky. "The curse is broken." Villagers gathered quickly. "Look, her beauty has returned. She looks even more radiant than before." But something else had changed. This time, Luma did not stand proudly. Instead, she bowed her head humbly. "Thank you," she whispered softly to the sky. Across the yard, Bako stepped outside, rubbing his eyes. He stared at her in confusion. "Wait, who are you?" Bako scratched his beard and stared harder. "Where is my wife?" Luma smiled gently. "I am your wife." Bako jumped backward. "No, my wife was ugly." The villagers burst into laughter. "You mean Luma?" someone shouted. "Yes," Bako said. "Where did she go?" Luma walked closer and handed him a bowl of food. "Thank you for being part of my journey," she said kindly. Bako blinked. "What journey?" Luma only smiled. Soon, news of her transformation spread far beyond the village. People from nearby towns came just to see her, but they were even more amazed by her kindness. One hot afternoon, a group of royal guards arrived on horseback. Behind them rode a young prince named Prince Jaro. He had heard a strange story. A proud girl had lost her beauty, learned humility, and regained both her beauty and wisdom. Prince Jaro stepped down from his horse and greeted her. "Are you Luma?" "Yes," she replied politely. The prince studied her carefully. Then he smiled. "Your beauty is remarkable." Luma bowed her head. "Thank you, but beauty alone means nothing." The prince laughed softly. "That is exactly why I came." Months later, the village celebrated the grandest wedding it had ever seen. Drums echoed across the fields. Women danced in colorful wrappers. Children ran happily between the crowds. Prince Jaro had returned to ask for Luma's hand in marriage. But this time, things were different. Before accepting, Luma said something important. "I will marry you," she told the prince gently, "only if I can continue helping the people of this village." Prince Jaro smiled warmly. "That is exactly the kind of queen my kingdom needs." The celebration lasted 3 days. Even the trees seemed to dance in the wind. Mama Rena hugged her daughter tightly. "You have grown wiser than I ever imagined." Papa Rena wiped happy tears from his eyes. "You are no longer just beautiful. You are truly noble." And Luma never forgot the lessons she learned. She treated servants kindly. She helped the poor. She greeted the elders with respect. One afternoon, she even visited Bako again. She brought him new clothes and food. Bako stared at the gifts in confusion. "Why are you helping me?" Luma smiled. "Because kindness is more beautiful than pride." From that day forward, the people told her story to their children, and the lesson was always the same. Pride may shine for a moment, but humility shines for a lifetime. True beauty does not live in the face, it lives in the heart. Thank you for watching, sweet folks. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out of our sweet and captivating stories we've in store for you on this channel. Also tell us what you've learned and where you're watching from in the comments section. Your voice matters to us here. Stay and enjoy another stories on this channel. We remain the #1 sweetest African folk tales. Love you, sweet folks.